as an entrepreneur, a lot of the things that we hear, a lot of the things that we focus on, a lot of the things that gurus in the space tell us is all focused on sales. It's all focused on how to generate revenue, and it's all focused on how to build revenue. But no one really sits down and tells you what to do with the money once it comes in, how to keep the company safe, where to invest, how to not only keep your business revenue safe, but your personal income safe as well. And there's only one person, one mentor, one person that I've turned to that has literally shifted everything for me. So if you want to hear that story, get some actionable things of what you can be doing right now to be growing your revenue outside of your business and what you should be doing with the money inside your business, well, then keep on listening. Hi, I'm Brandon Lucero, and you're about to experience the new way to thrive in business, entrepreneurship, and life by leaning into who you are, what you love, and standing up for what you want to create. Get ready, because this is where we go against the grain, say no to outdated society norms, and we say yes to change in order to create a happier, more fulfilled world. Welcome to the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the New Generation Entrepreneur. Today, we have an amazing episode with you because we have an amazing guest. What I like doing is bringing on some of my favorite peeps onto the podcast, and also just finding people that can add huge amounts of value to you guys and have amazing stories. And this guest actually has all of that. Today's guest has probably been one of my, no, not probably has been. It is not a probably, it is an absolute, has been my number one finance mentor that I've ever had in my entire life. So this person has taught me more about how to manage my money, build wealth, and how to be smart and safe with things while still living the lifestyle I want than anyone else in the entire world. This person has also taught me how to negotiate. We did a whole episode on negotiation that hopefully has helped you guys. Today's guest is the one who introduced me to a lot of things of what to do, little sneaky things to do, especially in car negotiations. And that guest is Mr. Mel Abraham. So Mel, glad to have you here, buddy. Thank you for being here.
Man, it is so good to be back. Thank you, Brandon. Always fun to chat with you.
Yeah. Of course. So for those of the listeners who don't know who you are, what you do, let's start there, and then we'll dig into some stories and details and things like
You
that
got
about
it.
what's going on inside the space. So who are you and what do you
You
do?
know, I am, like you said, Mel Abraham. I am a CPA by education, but I am an entrepreneur, thick and thin. I mean, I started my entrepreneurial journey at 11 years old, literally doing magic shows as a clown for $50, getting paid for a half an hour, getting $50 a half an hour. So, but it was that's what lit the fire under me to sit back and realize, wait a second, I'm getting paid to do something I love doing, and I'm impacting people's lives or giving them joy. And I'm going, what a better
Mm,
way? There's no better way to make a living. And
right.
and, and that's
Yeah.
that stayed with me. And so I took the traditional route of the CPA, but I found out really, really quickly that that wasn't what I wanted to do. I wanted to help people bring their dreams alive, business, of impact, of freedom, and help navigate. So I do a lot of consulting with folks, helping them build their businesses, and in the process, I was I started to help them build their wealth, because they're two different things, and it's one of the things that I think
Right.
many entrepreneurs get wrong. And I did it on a one-on-one basis. And then there was a couple of people in my life, you being one of them, that kept
Hmm.
pushing me, saying, "Hey, you've got to teach what you do with your one-on-ones broader. The people need this. The market needs this. Society needs it." And I resisted it because I didn't want to be pushed back into the CPA world. I
Right.
remember our friend James one time said to me, you know, "Oh, I see." He says, "You see yourself as a CPA that happens to be a thought leader and an entrepreneur." He says, "Do you realize that the rest of the world sees you as an entrepreneur and a thought leader that happens to be a CPA? And when you figure that out, you'll look at it differently." And I go, "Oh man." But that's what got me
So
to sit
good.
back and say, "Okay, let's take the process that I do one on one, and I did in my life and my son's life, and the people that I've worked with, and let's give it to the world in a process that they can be educated, empowered, and enabled to take control of their financial future. I mean, I believe wholeheartedly to the core of my being that financial freedom is a birthright. We just got to understand the
Yeah.
pathway to claim it.
And there's a lot of people that don't understand that. I think we get in today's world, and I know I got stuck in this trap and you helped me kind of break out of it, is that we see the business as the thing that's going to bring ultimately wealth or make us rich or going to be our income. And where I'm at now, thanks to you, is that the business is nothing more than a machine or a tool that I get to use to actually build the thing that's going to bring the wealth. It doesn't come from the business. The business provides one of the building blocks to ultimately wealth and security. And, I was just talking to you before this interview about moving, and we paid 20 grand to help have a company come and help us move and all of that stuff. And it was amazing because that 20 grand, I didn't make that 20 grand from the business. I made it from another investment, and that investment paid for that thing, and it didn't affect the business in any other way. But for the longest time, that's how things worked. Is when every time I had a big expense or something to pay, is like the business paid for it, the business paid for it, the business paid for it, and it's no longer that case. So with that being said, where I want to start today is just kind of going through some of the big problems that you see. I know, like, obviously recession's a big topic right now, but I also know there's a lot of entrepreneurs that are making mistakes, experiencing problems. And I know you've worked with so many different types of people. So what are some of the biggest problems that you're seeing today with a lot of entrepreneurs and the market?
Well, I think we can touch back on what you just started with, and I think the first thing is believing that your business is your wealth. Your business isn't your
Mm,
wealth. Your business actually was
right.
never meant to give you control and freedom, although a lot of times we come to it thinking that that's what we want, and we only
Well, that's
find
what's
ourselves.
preached to us.
What was that?
That's what, like, all these gurus
Oh
are
yeah.
preaching that. Like live the laptop lifestyle and an ultimate freedom in the business, and it conditions us to think that.
um, a 4 hour work week. The author of 4 hour work
Yeah.
week. He's never worked
Yeah.
a 4 hour week in his life. You know, I mean, here's the thing. Here's the reality: is I get the idea because I had the same idea. We end up finding ourselves on a treadmill, and
Mm,
we're only on a treadmill because we have the wrong perspective. And that perspective
mm,
is this: when we understand that the business is meant to have an impact and provide a solution so we can improve the human condition while creating a cash flow stream, then
yeah.
we're good. That's all it's meant to do.
Right.
Now we know that we're living our calling, making an impact, providing a cash flow stream. Now it's this cash flow stream that we need to use properly to build what I call a money machine, because in the money machine is where we have control and freedom. And
Mm,
this is the piece that is the missing link to your financial freedom. Because often if we there's two reasons this is something we need to be aware of. One is, if we look at our business as our wealth, then we're going to reinvest everything we have, energy, effort, money, all into the business. It means all our eggs
right.
in one basket. And if
Yeah.
health wise, like what happened to me, or legislative, or pandemic, or something shuts it down, it not only shuts down a cash flow stream, but it shuts down your wealth. And
Right.
so there is a tremendous amount of risk associated with just having that single element there. Yet, if we take and we intentionally use a process and a plan that moves some of it out, builds another machine that then gets these dollars to work for you, that's what gives you freedom. It gives you options, and it allows you to have choice in life. The objective is this: I want every dollar that I earn, that I put in that machine, to work harder for me than I did for it. And when
Right.
it does, that's where my freedom comes from.
Love that. So I'm going to throw something at
Yeah.
you and just see where you take this. I lately, like I would say the last year and a half, maybe even 2 years, have become so obsessed with building out these machines and all sorts of things. Like I've been playing around with like gold and silver. I've been playing around with like stocks. Obviously like the typical stuff like having an IRA and whatever, just moving money and
Yeah.
like all sorts of different things, like obviously property and stuff like that. And I've been getting a little aggressive with it, but then all of a sudden, the stock market, for example, just crashes. And so I saw like almost overnight, like a $25,000 hit just in my stock account. I didn't even look at the other stuff because I always know you and you're like, okay, long term, long term, long term. How do you manage that? Because you said every dollar needs to work for me, bring in more, but now I'm losing dollars. So what do we do in that sort of market? Because it happens,
Yeah.
things go up and down. So what do we do?
So there's a couple ways to handle it. Dude, first you should have talked to me. Last 45 days,
I
last 45 days, I hate to tell you how much I made in the market.
I know. I need to. I'm just gonna tell you one quick story because I'm just kind of like, oh my god, I made a stupid mistake. I saw Netflix go way down, huge drop, and I was like, there's no way it can go more than that. So I put $25,000 into it, and then the next day it went from like another $100 down. And I was like, what the hell? I just lost like $14,000 overnight. And I'm like, all right, I'm just going to leave it. I'm not going to touch it. I'm just going to wait 10 years to finally get my freaking money back. But my first thought was like, I should have talked to Mel.
So you still have it.
I still have it.
Good.
Yeah.
Well,
Mhm.
after we're done, I will walk you through a strategy where you can start bringing money in on that stock while you're waiting for it
Okay.
to come back up.
Okay. Yeah. Great. But okay.
Because
Now we have our listeners.
here's the point. There's strategies that you can use in the marketplace. But the first thing is
Okay.
this is we actually have to look at there's a portion of that machine that is investing that is
Right.
long-term money, whether it's in real estate, whether it's in stocks and bonds and ETFs, it's long-term money.
Yeah.
And if we
Right.
look at the market on the long-term basis, its return is anywhere between 9 and 12% long-term. It
Right.
goes up 8 out of
Yep.
10 years. We might be in the 2 years it's going down, okay? But it
Yeah.
goes out up 8 or 10 years. The long-term money is stuff that you're going to sit back and know that it's just going to go up and down and you're not going to get reactive to it. Okay?
Right.
And during this whole time, as the market has dropped 22%, and then in July coming up 9%, I was buying.
Mhm.
And when we had a dip, I tell my guys, buy more. Because
Right.
I know that 8 out of 10 years, the market goes up, and over time, it's going to continue to increase. Now, that's long-term money. There's
Right.
short-term money. Short-term money, let's say it's money for a home or down payment, or something that I need in say 3 to 5 years. That we don't take
Right.
risks with because we don't want to get
Right.
hit by the ups and downs of the market.
Right.
And so that is gonna be. I've got liquidity sitting in a high yield cash account, knowing that hey, yeah, inflation is eroding it, but it allows me to take advantage of opportunities when they come up, when there's a sale, when there's a drop, when a real estate deal comes up. So we need to look at it, the strategies that we come to with a long-term investment view or a short-term
Mhm.
need view is different. And then there's one other mindset. And I said that in the last 45 days, I made, what a fair amount of money. I made over $1,000 a day. Let's just put it that way in the last 45 days.
Wow.
Okay.
Shit. Great.
But that is money that is neither long-term nor short-term. It is a higher risk, and I'm trading. Trading and investing are
Mhm.
different things. I'm transacting.
Okay.
Now, it feels more like a job because I'll give you
Yeah.
for instance. I was in a trade this morning. I saw what the market was doing before the market opened up. I knew that I was going to have a small window of opportunity to get out of it and make probably another, 5, 8 grand.
Right.
I'm at the gym. Market opens up 6:30 a.m. our time. And I get done at the gym and I realize I'm not going to be able to get to where I need to be to make it happen. So I run to the
Right.
nearest Starbucks, slap my computer up, get ready. I got my earphones on. I'm waiting, just pull the trigger and do it. Close the trade out, get up and leave, but
Yeah.
it's a very different game. So it's not
Yeah.
for everyone. But
Right.
there's 3 different games that we are playing. And if we confuse them, then we get hurt. If Netflix, in your case, is a
Yeah.
long-term play, and you look at the
Yeah.
fundamentals of the company, you look at the lasting, uh, the story behind the company, and you say, "This is, I get it. They got hit. They're going to get back on
Yeah.
their feet. They're going to do." Now you can sit back and say, "All right, so what can I do to repair the trade, repair the investment, and just let it ride?" It's going to
Right.
feel bad every time you look at it and you see that big red number, and you go, "Ah." But
Yeah.
if it's long term, and it's going to go up and down. Now, if the company has a problem and isn't a
Yeah.
good, viable long term company, then sometimes you end up cutting the losses as best you can. You got to get out. So,
Right.
but if I'm looking at, let's just take Tesla today.
Yep.
Tesla dropped $65 a share today.
Yeah.
And now, is Tesla going anywhere? No, no.
Right.
But there's going to be a lot of volatility in it, primarily because Elon opens up his mouth and tweets and
Yeah.
all that stuff. But if you
Yeah.
know that that's the game, you can't get freaked out by it dropping $60. I look at it and go, there's a
Right.
buying opportunity here. How do I buy
Yeah.
it? Am I close to an entry point? Those are the things that we need to be doing, which I think leads me to one of the other mistakes
Yeah.
that happens is that, and you don't do this anymore, you're involved, is that too often we take a passive, and I don't like the term passive, approach to our
Right.
wealth and to our money. We think we have advisors, I'll deal with it another time, but your relationship with your wealth is just that. It's a relationship.
Yeah.
If if you look at your relationship or your marriage to Jackie
Yeah.
and you took a passive approach to it and you didn't really talk to her, you didn't really have conversations, you didn't go on dates, you didn't do things together, how good is the marriage going to be and how long is it going to last? And
Yeah.
so
All work.
we need to be actively involved in our wealth creation, proactive and actively involved. That doesn't mean it needs to be daily like I am, because I'm in the
Yeah.
business. So I'm watching the market.
Right.
My clients and the people I work with expect me to be full of information that can support them. So I got to do
Right.
it. Okay. But I love doing it. You don't need to do that, but being actively involved to check the pulse on the patient, to know what your numbers are, to track your net worth, to be informed so you're not just abdicating your finances to an advisor or something like that. Is huge. It'll make a huge difference in your wealth
Well, I
journey.
remember, I remember something that you told me too. And look, I would say, I don't know if you agree with this or not, but like, I would say, working with an advisor isn't necessarily a bad thing, but you don't do it so that it's off your plate, and that means you're not active in it. But the one thing about advisors that I never realized until you brought it up with me is that most advisors never ask you what your goals are, what your lifestyle is, and any of those things. And so if you go to the wrong advisor who's like, I'm going to play everything super safe and you're going to be rich in 40 years, but your lifestyle isn't that, or maybe they work with, most people have a 9 to 5 and a stable salary with stable money every month, and not an entrepreneur who could have a whole excess of money every month. You're going to be a conflict
Yeah.
with the advisor, or they're not going to have your end goals in mind. And so I never realized before, but you told me, you're just like, you need to, if you do go with an advisor, it's not like that's now off your plate, and you have to find someone that understands what your lifestyle is and your goals are so that they can invest accordingly. And I was like, oh my God, I don't think people ever even ask themselves that question or realize they even should.
No. So this is huge. First off, um, so in 2009, I got in a mountain biking accident, but I was on the street. Yeah, I come down a hill.
Mhm.
You know where it is, Wood Ranch, the big hill coming down. I was
Mhm.
going 25 miles an hour because I wanted to coast up the uphill, and my shoelace gets caught,
Oh, shoot.
and I clip the brake. I flip the bike. I come down on my head. I'm unconscious. Grade 4 concussion.
Mm.
When I wake up, they get me. I'm stuttering. I got no feeling on the right side. I have a dear friend who retired at 37. He comes to me the day after I get out of the hospital. Says, "I'm taking you to lunch." And I said, "All right." So he takes me to lunch to the Hat pastrami shop out there. And so he
Yeah.
he looks across at me, and I'm in a neck brace. I'm stuttering. I don't, I'm like going, and he looks at me. He says, "How much is enough?" I go, "Dude, I just had a bike wreck, and now you want to ask me life's philosophical questions. What do you mean, how much is enough?" He said, "You got on the bike, distracted, distressed, and angry." He says, "And you went running.
Mm.
And the reason you had the accident was because you were distracted, distressed, and angry. And I know something for certain. You will heal from this. But until you know where your finish line is, you will get back on the bike and you'll
Mm.
keep pedaling, distracted, distressed, and angry, and you'll crash again." He said, "Too often we don't know where the finish line is. We don't know that we've gotten to a point where we need to be, and that's the
Mm.
problem, is that we don't define what our life is going to be like. We don't need to work on and know all the details of how we're going to make it happen. That's later.
Right.
But let's get clear. And if it's, in your case, if it's, I just want to live close to the wilderness, want to have access to lakes, streams, mountains, snow, and
Right.
and and living that's great. If it's a yacht in Monaco, great. But until you decide that's where you want to go, what are we building wealth for? We don't know when we got there.
Right.
And this is huge.
Yeah.
And most advisors are looking at your current existence as the definition of what your life's going to be like. But I don't know about
Right.
you. I think if I've worked for 40, 50, 60 years, I want a grand last chapter of my life,
Yeah.
last season of my life. And so I have a
100%.
big
Yeah.
vision, and Stephanie and I are living into it. But my team and your advisor, their first thing is to buy into your vision, not give you obstacles of why you can't make it. And then let's
Right.
figure out a plan and say, here's what I can do to help this happen, but I need you to bring this to the table.
Right.
That's a whole different game.
And that makes a lot of sense. And even dealing with like your CPA or your accountant too, taking into account how the business operates is really important.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of CPAs or accountants or like advisors, they get so stuck on just throw everyone into a certain system or certain process. And I actually remember I asked you to come
Yep.
on to one of my calls with the CPA for our estimated taxes for our final quarter, and I think they told me I owed like $200,000 or something for quarter four. And I like fell out of my chair and I'm like, whoa, 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 $200,000. What are you guys talking about? It makes absolutely no sense. I've already paid blah, 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 X amount. And then you already knew what the problem was. You're
Yeah.
like, all right, how are you guys calculating that? I'm assuming it's based off of past revenue from the earlier this year. And they're like, yeah. And they were basing it off a month or a quarter or something like that when I had a launch. We did like $1 million launch. And I was like, yeah, we're not doing $1 million launch in quarter four. So what are my what are my taxes now? And it ended up being like 10 grand or
Yeah.
something like that, or 20 grand or something. So, but that is a problem you have to fully understand what it is you want, how your business operates, when the money's coming in, coming out, and then being able to work with people that can facilitate that, understand it, and even want to. Because I think sometimes you just get people that are kind of lazy, or they've been doing it one way for so long, they don't want to adapt or change or whatever. So you do have to be careful. But it comes down to what we're talking about is you have to take responsibility for that first, because if you lack the responsibility, you're just setting yourself up for failure,
Yeah.
for hard times.
Yeah, without a doubt, without a doubt, and I'm
Yeah.
glad you used the word responsibility, because there's a lot of people that look at their current financial situation and without, and they look at it with the perspective of blame,
Mm.
which is an unproductive emotion or feeling, because it's just a negative spiral. Responsibility is our ability to respond. It's
Yeah.
it's our willingness to accept ownership of whatever it is without blame. But until we accept ownership, I I'm completely immune to being able to do anything about it. But as soon as you
Right.
accept ownership, say, this is what it is, here's what I did to contribute. Okay, move on. Now you can do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. 100%. Okay. So I was in a period, and a lot of our listeners know this story. In 2017, did $500,000 that year, found myself, in debt. Um, and it was basically what I've come to realize. It was because of a lack of habits. And I know that's one of the things you talk about is, because I know some of the listeners might be new in their entrepreneurial journey, and they might be saying things like, I don't have enough money to invest, or I'm just getting started, or I will do it one day once I hit X amount of dollars. And that was my attitude back then. But what I recognize is that it wasn't really about how much money I had. It was more about developing the habits. And so let's transition a little bit into what should we be doing? What areas should we be focusing in, regardless of how much money you make? Like, what's step one to kind of getting all of this stuff sorted out?
Great. And you're right. Your wealth creation is more about a behavior and not less about the money. And
Mm,
so the more we can bring that behavior and make it automatic, the more it becomes a habit, and the more that the system and the process will work for you. So the first thing
mm,
we talked about already, let's just assume first thing is we need to know where we're going. We got to
yep.
understand what we want. Vividly, what does it look like? We need to understand the why around it just the same.
Okay. Why is the why important?
Because otherwise we're chasing a number.
Mm,
And we all, well, we don't, maybe not all of us, but we've all heard of people that from the outside they look like they have a wonderful life, yet they commit suicide, or they have
mm,
problems, or and you look at it and go, God, they fancy cars, they have wealth, they have no richness, because they're
mm,
experiencing life through pain. And the reason for that is chasing the dollar. The money is a result, it's not a purpose. There was a
mm,
happiness study that was done by Harvard. 4,000 millionaires were surveyed and said what made them happy. And in that one of the top elements, none of the top elements was making money, but
mm.
one of the top five was how they made money, the purpose that drove
Interesting.
them, that does that. So it might simply be that you have an elderly parent that you want to take care of. I want to buy my mom a home, my dad a home. I want my kids to see what's possible. It may be that, hey, I came from nothing. I want to prove to myself. Whatever it is, it might be a mission. I
Right.
it could simply be that I want to start making donations and charitable pursuits. I've got a charity that deals with abuse against women and children. So there's something that drives us more than the commas in the bank account, because that's just a statistic.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so we get that defined. Now we go backwards and say, where are we at? In other words, there's two things I need to know. I need to know, well, three things. I need to know where my money is coming in from,
Okay.
income sources. And I will say this, that multiple income sources is no longer a luxury. It's a requirement in these times. Okay.
It is, yeah.
We need to know where our money's going, our expenses. So when we look at the expenses, what I want you to do is categorize it. I want you to literally go back and say, I'm going to take 6 months of my credit card statements, bank statements, and everything, whether your business, your personal. I'm going to go through all of it. And you might need, tequila, wine, coffee, whatever it is to get through this, because it might be a painful experience, because I want you to mark it and go, this is a need, this is a want. Needs are for your survival. Roof over your head, the food that you eat, health, transportation, clothing, that kind of thing. They're not mani-pedis. Right. They're not sports things. They're not toys. They're not anything. Those are desires. Those are wants.
Right.
You know me. I'm not going to ever tell anyone, don't do it. Usually I don't.
Right.
But I want people to do things aware and conscious of the impact it's having down the road. So as long as you make a conscious decision about the want, keep it. But if it's something you're not using, it could be a software, it could be a subscription, it could be anything, and you're not using it, why are we spending the money? Fact of the matter is that if I can get $50 a week, $200 a month, I can build a $350,000 nest egg just on $200 a month. So it doesn't take a lot.
And how long does that take?
Huh?
How long?
30
how long
years.
would it take?
30 years at 8% will get you to 350,000.
Okay, this is really important for everyone listening, because as entrepreneurs, we don't have retirement plans.
Nope.
You're responsible for your retirement plan. And that was something, even when times were tough and I didn't have a lot of money, I'm just thinking like, man, I don't have retirement at all. I don't have a 401k. I don't have anything. And $200 a month, even in my hardest of times, I could have pushed away or scrounged up $200 a month. And that in 30 years, when it was time for me to retire, would have been worth $350,000. And then just imagine what happens if you start making more. You can double that, triple that. It starts to add up into the millions. And this alone could be your retirement plan.
It's so huge, which kind of gets to this other side of it, is that you actually have to make investing the priority over your present lifestyle.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing. I go get my hair cut, and this guy, he's a young kid that cuts my hair, and he tells me, so he knows what I do. So we chat money, and he says, my buddy just bought a $5,000 watch. I go, really? I said, does he make a lot of money? He says, no, he's like me. He's 22, 23 years old. I said, why'd he buy it? So, well, because his friends thought it was cool. I said, can I do math for you? Every dollar you put away in your early 20s is going to turn into $80 to $90 by the time you retire. I said, so let's just use 80 for an example. $5,000 watch would have turned into 80 times had he invested it. So he didn't buy a $5,000 watch. He squandered a $400,000 nest egg.
That's
and I
crazy.
Said, wow. And he did it for a group of people that he may not be in his life in a couple of years. Now, totally fine to do it. But if you have that knowledge, would you have made the same decision? And that's what I mean by being aware, conscious, and intentional.
God, that's so powerful. Can you imagine what would happen if people go to make a purchase and they ask themselves, would I rather have this purchase or 80 times this amount of money in 30 years? What would your spending look like? And for me, there are certain things that I would still continue to spend the money on. I'd be like, you know what? I'm fine giving up $400,000 in 30 years for this or whatever it may be. Like, for example, moving cost me 20 grand. I'm fine giving away $1.6 million to not have to lift an effing box or to break my back or to do whatever. Because medical bills would have been more.
Yeah.
And the stress would have taken years off my life. So there are things like that, but I think that's such an interesting and very powerful perspective to have for entrepreneurs and all the listeners as you guys spend money on things, and to really ask yourself, is this better spent now or invested and saved down the road?
And then at least you're making a conscious choice. It's okay. I have no problems. Look, we spend a fair amount of money here in Abraham land.
Yeah.
you know? Now, the beautiful
Yeah.
thing as entrepreneurs is that you have the ability to earn it too. You can sit back and say, what can I do?
Yeah.
How, instead of, I wish I could afford it, how can I make it affordable?
Yeah.
So we can go do it.
Yeah. Right.
But it's
That's how my
huge.
mind works now is like that. Say, hey, we want to buy this thing. What can we do to produce that revenue?
Yeah.
What can we do? You can't do that if you're in a job.
No.
I mean, maybe you can, but you're gonna have to get way more creative than an entrepreneur because an entrepreneur has that ability and system set up to be able to do that. Okay, so the process that we are talking about, step one is to know what you want and why you want it, which I love because now we have purpose behind what we're doing. So when we ask ourselves that question of, do I spend this money or to make 80 times, there's actually a purpose and a
Yeah.
reason as to why that money is valuable, not just for the sake of having the money. It could be buying a house, retiring, spending more time with the kids, whatever. Um, what's after that? Like we know the what, we know the
So
why.
now
Where like what is
we get a
required?
bit more tactical. Now, at the very beginning, I want everyone to be able to have minimum. If you've got debt and all that stuff, the first thing I want you to do is have $1,500 or 1 month's expenses in a high yield cash account.
Okay. And where can you get a high yield cash
You,
account?
you can get them pretty much. All institutions are offering them. They're now probably giving you about 1.25% as the interest rates rise. You can get it at Allied Bank. You can go to bankrate.com and you'll see all the
Okay.
different savings rates. Be careful of teaser rates. They might sit back and say, we'll give you 3%, but it's 3% for on the first 5,000, and then it's a small rate after that. So I
Got it.
want
Okay.
it. Here's the key with the high yield cash account. I want it 100% liquid. The reason we want
Okay.
that
Yep.
$1,500 or that 1 month, and this is not your emergency fund. This is just a cushion, a comfort fund to just give you a little breathing room. That
Okay.
I want it 100% liquid so I can get access to it if I need it. There are no expenses, fees associated with having the account, and it's fully insured.
Okay.
So if the bank goes under, you're insured up to a certain amount. So that's the first step. And the only reason we do that step is to just give you a little room so you're not using the credit card in emergencies. You have cash there to carry you. Now, we then take and look at our debt and say, do I have destructive debt? Do I have, and in inflationary, recessionary potential times, in a time where they're raising interest rates, destructive debt is debt that is not increasing your net worth and not creating wealth for you. It is consumables, it is lifestyle, it is luxuries that you are financing because you don't have the cash to pay for it now. So
Right.
we need to, one, stop that, and two, we need to pay it off. And
So it'd be like credit card debt versus a mortgage,
yes,
which technically is debt, but it's an asset helping you achieve an asset.
Exactly. And so I look at destructive debt and I want to get it paid off. Now, here's where I depart from most of the people out there, the financial world that is out there. They'd say, pay your debt off first before you start investing. Okay. I disagree with that.
Mhm.
Here's why. Your debt management is a muscle and a behavior. Your investing is a muscle and behavior, but they're different muscle groups
Mhm.
and different behaviors. If all I do is debt management, it's like the dude that would go to the gym and only work his upper body. Looks really weird in
Right.
shorts, okay? So I want to exercise both muscle groups. I want to get the behavior down for the debt management and the investing at the same time. And time is the greatest lever on wealth building. So I want to get the money in. So if I have $500 left over that I have to pay the destructive debt and invest, I have my clients split it. And they can split
Mm.
it 40, 60, 50, 50, 70, 30, whatever their comfort is, but they're working the muscles. And so
Got
a
it.
portion goes to accelerating the pay down of the debt, and a portion goes to an investment or a high yield cash account, which is your investment accumulation account until you put it in there. Now you have a
Okay.
process in place that is going to help you start building wealth and get out of debt at the same time. Now here's the
Got it.
magic that we need to do. I want this process completely automated. That means you're going to talk to the bank, you're going to talk to the brokerage, and you're going to say, every month I want this money to go towards this investment account or this high yield cash account. Every month I want it to go towards this debt. They will automatically do it for you, out of sight, out of mind. I want to remove 100% of the friction with your investing. The more friction there is, the less likely you will stay on the game. So we make it
Mhm.
automatic and we put it in separate accounts because I want to also remove temptation. We get
Okay.
tempted all the time. Every time I'm on freaking Instagram, I just bought a $900 freaking coffee maker off of Instagram, okay?
Now, let me ask you a question. Would you rather have a $900 coffee maker right now or $720,000 in 30 years? Was that a smart decision, Mel? Hope I did my math
You,
right.
listen, as much caffeine as I'm getting my money's worth out of it. I can literally from the app go and it grinds the beans, it puts it in there. I can choose whatever kind of coffee concoction I want. It's like I'm gonna open up my own Starbucks. It's gonna be Melbucks.
Yeah. That's amazing. I love that. Okay, cool. So less friction, automate. And that's, I think, is what's so beautiful in today's day and age is even the expenses. I know we were talking about expenses earlier. There's a lot of softwares, and even sometimes your bank will even provide some breakdowns. I know mine does. We're at Wells Fargo now, and they have like breakdowns and stuff. And then our CPA's accounting software does the same thing, breakdowns of expenses and whatnot. Um, and I think it's so great because it also takes away so many excuses. Like, what excuses do you really have? There's so much softwares that can just automate
Yeah.
so much of this for you nowadays. Um, quick, and I want to keep going, but I have a quick side note, funny story for you. I actually set up an automation back before I even started my business, and this is when I was broke. And we set up an automation um, for $50 a day. No, sorry, it was when I was just starting the business because Will. This is when Will was born, it was $50 a month for Will, and it was a high yield savings account for him, and it was automated, and I completely forgot about it and didn't know it was still running. And Jacqueline had set up the account, so she's the only one who had access to it. So it was literally out of sight, out of mind
Yeah.
for me. I didn't notice the $50, and I didn't even see the account. And then when Maddie, our second or third, was born, I'm like, we got to get some stuff set up for them. And Jacqueline's like, you should talk to Mel and see what he recommends. And I was like, but yeah, but didn't we already do something for Will? And she's like, oh yeah, he has his own account. I was like, how much money does he have? And she's like, oh, he's like $5,000 or something like that. And I was like, what? He had an account. He has an account with $5,000 in it. And she's like, yeah, it's just, and I was just like, wow, it was just out of sight, out of mind. And it's just been stacking and stacking and stacking. And he's 8 years old and he already has $5,000
If
sitting
you
there for
if you
him.
invest that, so I did this whole thing. I call it the Emily factor for my granddaughter Emily because someone asked me.
Mm-hmm.
This is another thing about the power of little numbers, but a lot of time.
Right.
In that, they said, what do you do? What would you tell a parent to do? What are you gonna do? I said, here's what I doing for Emily, $500 when she was born, $25 a week, so $100 a month. Okay,
Mm.
I know you're going. He's such a cheapskate. Uh, and I said, I'm going to do that for the first 20 years of her life. And at some point, now I
Wow.
do not believe that you ever give assets to children without giving them skill sets
Right.
first. So,
Yep.
so I will do what I did with my son. As she gets older, she just turned 1, so she's not old enough. We'll start having conversations. We'll put some things in place where she starts to learn because I will have, by the time she's 20, have put $20,000 away.
Mm.
But by the time she's 60, that $20,000 I put away for her would have turned into 1.6 million. So
Wow.
for $25 a week, less than $5 a day, I take care and set up my granddaughter for life.
Are you putting that in are you just going into a high yield savings account, or is it going to an
So
investment account or
so here's
brokerage account?
this is a great question. So I'll accumulate it for a period of time into a high yield cash account. And
Okay.
then we'll put it into, because there may some ETFs. So what do we invest in? You can invest in, when you first start out. I recommend that you start to look at low cost ETFs and or index funds. or target date
Okay.
index funds. And the reason for that is that it mitigates your risk because it's a diversified basket of stocks instead of one stock. When Netflix dropped, you felt it really bad. Okay.
Yeah.
If Netflix was just part of an ETF and it was one of 100 stocks, you would have felt it, but it would have not been nearly as bad. And so
Right.
the reason we
Makes
use a
sense.
basket is because of that, and it's easier and simpler. So what'll happen is that, after the first $1,000 is there, then we'll automatically then have it regularly invest into a broad-based stock market fund. She's not touching it for decades. Well, if the market's
Right.
returning 10 to 12% over time, that's going to continue to compound 10 to 12% over the decades. That's how we get
Right.
it to the 1.6 million. So we don't leave it sitting in a 1% savings account. We actually start. So there's two
Mm,
automations. One that puts it into the savings account, and then another that takes it from that and puts it into the investment.
got it. Okay. That makes
Yeah.
sense. Okay. Awesome. All right. So let's just kind of recap where we're at. We have know what you want and why. Start with that minimum high yield cash account. And then step number 3 that I wrote down is really try to automate as much as you can, but really working on those habits. And I know there's a lot of details we could get into. We're not going to get into it in this episode, but we did talk a little bit about like, different stocks or ETFs or index funds. There's also, there's other options like real
Yeah.
estate and so many other things that we could be talking about as an entrepreneur to start investing in. But would you say those are the 3 main things to start, or is there another like main thing? We don't need to get into the details,
Yeah.
but
I think that those are the three main things. But I
yep.
think overarching all of this has to
Mm-hmm.
be your belief that it's within reach. Because it's so easy to say, I'm a creator, I'm not good with numbers, or I didn't come from money, therefore I can't do it. Well,
Right.
80% of millionaires are first generation millionaires. They didn't inherit it, they didn't get it gifted, they didn't win it, they created it. Um,
Yeah.
but this is the other reason the why is important. When we have a strong enough why, we will have a strong enough resourcefulness to figure it out.
Mm,
And so I get it. You may not be good with math, but if you can add 2 things and subtract 2 things, great. You may not be good with investments because you just don't understand them. That's okay. I didn't understand them. We all didn't know how to walk when we were born. We just got to
right.
learn the fundamentals so you aren't blind with your money, because that's
Right.
when you lose, like I did with the Ponzi scheme, or people get taken. When you're blind with your money, then it's easy for you to not be aware of it. So that means don't be afraid to, one, advocate for your position, two, be curious and critical, ask critical questions. Your advisors, no matter CPA, attorney, financial advisor, their primary job, their very first job, is to educate you,
Mm,
so you can make informed decisions. The reason, Brandon, you brought me on, we have a relationship. You can trust me, and I have no bias. I'm not selling investments. I'm
right.
not doing that. But you you weren't understanding what the CPA was saying. I could help interpret it, or I could ask the critical questions that would get us
Right.
to the bottom line faster in doing that. And I think that we need to be in that game and not just accept it for what is.
Right.
So that's that. I think that overarches everything. Um, and even if we made bad investing decisions, look, I have lost more money than some people will make in a lifetime. But the beautiful thing is, I've done enough things right to be successful. But the better thing is, I've done enough things wrong to be educational.
Love that perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's a big piece of it. That's just a big piece of being successful anyways, is just understanding that if you do make mistakes, it's okay. And they will help you prevent them in the future, but also educate you so that you make more money in the long run. Also, just to clarify, Mel did mention Ponzi scheme. He was a victim to one. He wasn't running one. Just so everyone knows.
Yes, I was victimized by one. I got caught in one. So yes.
Yeah. And I think we had you on the podcast and on an earlier episode. If you guys want to hear that story, you can go look up that episode on the
Yeah.
podcast. He gives all the details on it. All right, Mel, I want to thank you for coming on today. And what I want to do is introduce everyone to a free training that you have coming up. I know you are going to be going even deeper into a lot of the things that we talked about today and helping people starting to get this process set up. So do you mind telling us a little bit about the training, what they can expect, what you're going to cover, and then I'll just give them the link to get registered.
Awesome. So this is my Affluent Entrepreneur live training. I'm going to go deep. It's going to be all live, three parts, 3 sessions. We're going to dig into the process. The process that I got kind of pushed into say, hey, you got to give this to the world. I'm going to go into the process. What does it take to get the money stories out of your head, to get the obstacles out of your head? Where do we need to be? What do we need to focus on financially to start moving us forward? What are the processes you need to be in place? What are the 9 things that when we have these things dialed in is going to give you the 3 critical outcomes that I think we all want: a richer lifestyle, a deeper impact, and complete freedom. And this isn't about the money as much as it's about the life that you get to experience in there. But we need the money, not for the money's sake. We need the money because we want to buy the moments back in our life. We should be measuring our wealth in time and not dollars. And I look at it and I say to someone, I said, how much of your moments of your life, the time in your life, do you control? Can you say, for today, I can decide to do something, I can decide to do nothing. I have 100% control of my time. That is a rich life. And the process of doing that, using the business to generate and scale and optimize cash flows, so you have that cash flow coming out, to create then a money machine to accumulate and build a wealth machine that allows you to live without having to work. So you get to live a get to life instead of a have to life. And then how do you insulate it and make sure that you don't lose it? And so we go deep into, in 3 training sessions, I go deep into that, as well as I'm going to be answering questions and helping people out. I look at it post-cancer. This season of my life is, as much as I fought the cancer, and people will have heard the story, or they can go back to the other episode to hear it. I fought it physically, mentally, psychologically, all of it, but I didn't fight it financially. And it's because I had a money machine. And it's the same thing that I want for everyone else, because I see people struggling through the pandemic. I see people worried today, and it doesn't need to be that way. And there's principles, there's priorities, and there's processes that transcend time. And when you get them into your life and make them habits and behaviors, you're dialed in. And it's not just for you. It's for your children. It's for your grandchildren. It's for the missions and the movements you want to get behind, because this is the way to create sustainable legacy wealth.
I love that. And I love that you come from the heart with all of it too. And it's not about the big flash, the Lambos and the houses and the whatever, because this isn't about, I don't know, for lack of a better word, the fancy stuff. It's about real deep meaning and living your life on your terms. And I love that last phase, which is insulate too, just to protect it all and be smart with what you're doing. And so for everyone who wants to get in on this training, if you are an entrepreneur, this is a training you must absolutely get on, because this is the stuff that you're not going to learn. They don't teach it to you in schools. You're probably not going to learn it from a CPA or an advisor. You need someone who is an actual entrepreneur, and not only just an entrepreneur, but an entrepreneur who's also a course creator, who's in the same business as you, doing launches, knows how the money works and the money flows, and knows how to be able to set up that rich life. So if you guys want to get onto that training, it's brandonlucero.com/Mel, M-E-L. So brandonlucero.com/Mel, and you can register for that training. Now, not that you guys need it or anything like that, but again, I'm going to give my own testimonial here of Mel and his training. And I would say,
Did we say that it was free? Sorry about that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Free training. So you don't have to do the whole 80% rule, 80 times rule of getting in on this training. But just to paint the picture for you guys is I was never taught any of this stuff growing up. You know, my parents were a nurse and a fireman, and my dad did start a business and kind of introduced me to being an entrepreneur, but I never learned any of this stuff. And I got in trouble in 2017 because I had not built up those habits. And within like 3 to 4 years, I'm just going to say 3 years, was able to climb myself out of the debt that I had put myself into, but also had built up hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of assets and things outside of the actual business because of what Mel has taught me. So if I'm able to do that, like, again, my business didn't give me that wealth, hundreds of thousands of dollars. What I did with the money from the business gave me hundreds of thousands of dollars in assets in 3 years. And that's what it did. And so it's all thanks to Mel, and Mel, I can't express my gratitude to you. And again, this is one of those moments where you just want to like shake people and just be like, well, you guys get on this effing training and quit sitting around. Like, I don't even have the words to express how important this is. So hopefully for all of you listening, you get on. It's brandonlucero.com/Mel, MEL. So Mel, any last words you have for my peeps before they go and register?
I think that you just come in with an open mind. You come in with a willingness to develop the habits, and I'll take care of the rest. I'll give you the guidance. I'll give you the pathway. I think that we all should be striving to live a life that outlives us. And the way we do that is to have a bigger purpose for our money, because that forces us to have a bigger purpose for our life. And that's the journey I want us on.
Hey guys, thank you so much for checking out another episode of the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, go below, hit the subscribe button, and make sure you click on that bell icon and get notified every time we drop a new episode. Now, if you're looking for the show notes, we have them linked underneath this video, as well as our social media handles and some links to free training and offers that we drop from time to time to help you guys even further. So go check those out if you're interested, and thank you so much for tuning in to the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast.